D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick will be along shortly after handling his Predators broadcasting responsibilities. The breaking news in Nashville: the Tennessee Titans have fired general manager Ran Carthon. I was prepared today to come on this program and say, it's 11 a.m. Do you know where your controlling owner is? Like those old PSAs, because we hadn't heard anything from Amy Adams Strunk. But during the Chase and Big Joe show at 9:38 a.m., the Tennessee Titans posted a story as they described why they are parting ways with general manager Ran Carthon after 2 seasons. Amy Adams Strunk, according to Jim Wyatt, informed Carthon this morning that the team will be making a change at GM. This was the quote from Amy Adams Strunk. Quote, "I've loved the time I've spent with Ran. He's a talented football mind, a great man, and friend to everyone along his path. It's impossible to ignore that our football team has not improved over the past 2 years. I am deeply disappointed in our poor win-loss record during this period, of course, but my decision also speaks to my concern about our long-term future should we stay the course. I love this team more than you can imagine. To our fans, we know this level of performance isn't acceptable. We're humbled by your support as we continue to work towards building the team you expect and deserve." That was Tennessee Titans controlling owner Amy Adams Strunk in a statement detailing why she is moving on from Ran Carthon. There's a lot to get into, Derek. There was a long story from Jim Wyatt with quotes from Burke Nihill, Chad Brinker, describing all of this. By the way, in the story, President of Football Operations Chad Brinker will lead the search for a new general manager. Brian Callahan will continue in his role as head coach. So we have a lot to dissect as we sift through the wreckage of the 2024 Titans season. But Derek, let's just start as broadly as we can. What are your thoughts about the Titans' decision to fire Ran Carthon after 2 seasons as general manager?
I mean, I'm not surprised, and said this before, said again. What they choose to do in Titanland doesn't directly affect my life. So I've been around this game long enough, been a part of coaching changes to know that, listen, don't be surprised by anything in this league. Everyone know how I felt about it prior to him being fired, Ran Carthon being fired. I still stand by it, but listen, it's done. I'm not going to harp on, why I felt that he deserved another opportunity. But it's starting to look more and more evident that this is a circus. This seems to be a circus. And I didn't want to think that because I have a lot of respect for that organization. They drafted me in 97, gave me an opportunity to become the pro that I was. So you want to see a team, regardless of however it ended, I still want to see that team do well. And I don't want to think that, the owner of this, of the Tennessee Titans, is running a circus. I didn't want to believe that. I really didn't. And I fought tooth and nail. And as I've said before, I have no problem with saying, hey, listen, I was completely wrong. Some people have problems with saying they're wrong. They skirt around it and everything else. I have no problem. Listen, on this one, I'm not surprised, but I was wrong. I thought, she was going to give him the benefit of the doubt and let him ride this thing out, at least this upcoming year, and then make a decision after that. But the way they addressed everyone in the manner that they did, the wording that they used, I don't know what's going on. I mean, one texter put it correctly, and I was listening to Big Joe, and Chase, and Big Joe read it out, and I can't verbatim, I can't tell you what it said, but they chronicled it, I think, you know, the whole, you hire a GM, you fire a coach in malarkey, you pick a coach, you fire a GM, you pick a GM, you make him work with the head coach, and then you fire the head coach, and then you allow the GM to pick a guy, but then you promote the assistant GM over the GM, but you give the GM another title along with his GM title, and then you end up firing him. That is a circus if I haven't heard of one. And that texter, whoever that texter was, Big Joe, thank you for reading it because I was listening to it. Whoever that texter was, they have a point. That's a damn circus. Again, my thing was, I thought Ran should come back, but if you were going to fire everybody. Everybody, even Brian Callahan, even though I don't think he had much to fire everybody, and you can start all over again. Keep Bert Nighthill and let him be a part of the search engine that's going to go out and get the best GM for the job. But clear the table of everybody. But you left some food on the table. And what's going to happen is that food's going to get cold. You're going to bring some hot food in. That hot food's going to not do well. Then you're going to toss the cold food out and bring in some more hot food. And then that hot food that was hot is going to get cold again. If you're going to do it all at one time. Cook the meal at one time and serve it all at one time to your patrons. Do that. Don't bring it in waves, because when you bring food in waves, it's not as good. And that's what you have done, Miss Amy. You have done this. You have demonstrated that. I'm not sure. It's a circus. That's just what it is. And again, whether she fired or kept Ran Carthon, listen, we were going to have something to talk about either way. But she chose to go that route. And she did what was best for her organization. And okay, that's fine. It don't matter. But it comes off as a circus because fire everybody. Clear the house. And then at least you can say, well, I cleaned house. I brought in a whole new group. And at least I can give them all the same amount of time. We're all on the same timeline. Since you fired Malarkey, nobody's been on the same timeline. And you've restarted the timeline with one portion, but not the other portion. That doesn't, to me, listen, I haven't ran an organization like this or even close to this. I haven't picked players. I haven't evaluated players for them. So I can't sit here and say that I could have done that job better than she can do it, because I can't. I can't do the job better than Ran would have done it, or did it, or not do it. I can't do that job better than Brinker could do it, or Bert Nighthill, or Brian Callahan. But you make it seem you're showing your fans, and they're telling you, it seems like a circus over there. Your fan base is telling you, Miss Amy, go on Twitter. I'm sure you've been there before, or X, excuse me. I'm sure you've been on it. People close to you have been on it. Go see what they're saying about your franchise after today or today. They're saying it's a circus. I didn't want to believe that.
The Tennessee Titans, whenever they hire a new general manager, though it sounds like from these quotes in this story from Jim Wyatt, that Chad Brinker is really going to be the general manager. And we're going to get into all of that throughout this program. But either way, there will be somebody with the title of general manager. The Tennessee Titans will start a season with a different general manager for the third time in 4 years. Mm-hmm. The season started in 2022. John Robinson was the general manager. He was fired roughly halfway through that season, 2/3 through that season. Of course, Ran Carthon in 2023 and 2024, and general manager TBD in 2025. 3 general managers in a 4-year span. And Derek, as I was preparing for the show last night before all of this news broke, I was reading a story about how the Titans finished 2-15 against the spread this season, which was the worst against the spread record in a season by any team in the Super Bowl era, according to ESPN. And as part of the story, they got a quote from John Murray, who was the vice president of the Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas. And let me read this quote to you and just pay attention to the last sentence. It's a weird situation, John Murray told ESPN. The point spread is supposedly the great equalizer for a team no matter how good or bad they are. Here's the kicker. I think the Titans franchise is so irrelevant that nobody even noticed. And that is what this situation demonstrates. That this Tennessee Titans organization has no clue what it's doing. And I saw Joe Rexroad tweet a link to his story at The Athletic talking about how the Titans were in the running for biggest laughing stock in the NFL. And I texted him back before the show. And I said, you have to be relevant to be a laughing stock. The Tennessee Titans, outside of this market, and I guess they won't be now because they have the number 1 pick in the draft, are an irrelevant franchise.
But to that fact, they've never been relevant. It's every so many years that this franchise is relevant, whether they're winning or not.
But this turmoil,
it makes it even worse.
This annual upheaval is making it worse.
Yes.
I pulled up the story from TennesseeTitans.com, written by Jim Wyatt. Titans finalized football structure with promotions for Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker. The date of this article, January 24th, 2024. They didn't even make it a calendar year before having to make this change. And you're right, Derek. If they were going to make changes, they should have made sweeping changes. Out goes Ran Carthon. Out goes Chad Brinker. Out goes Brian Callahan. Start fresh. This is an opportunity. This was an opportunity for the Titans to do that. It's a critical offseason. They have the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Whether they decide to make that pick, and by the way, I did get a kick out of Deion Sanders reacting to this news with, I believe he said, wow. But I'm sure that will generate a lot of conversation because, of course, the Titans are in position to draft Shedeur Sanders if they so choose. But this is a critical offseason. And the problem is, as you said, Derek, it's just there are so many forced marriages over these past few years. Ran Carthon coming in to work with Mike Vrabel. Clearly, that did not work. They were oil and water. So Amy Adams Strunk sides with Ran Carthon and fires Mike Vrabel.
Well, it started before that.
Mm-hmm.
They forced a marriage between Robinson and Malarkey.
That's true as well. That is true. So you can go back even further. They bring in Ran, who hires Chad Brinker as an assistant general manager.
That's the funny part right there.
And within a couple of years, not even,
backstabbers,
Chad Brinker,
backstabbers.
even in less than 2 years, Chad Brinker.
You find out who your friends are.
Oh, man. Give Derek a second.
In your face. All the while they want to take your place. Backstabbers.
Either way.
Backstabbers.
I'm sure there was some backstabbing. There might have been some front stabbing.
It's all backstabbing in that franchise. Just look at it. All of it is nitpicking, backstabbing. This damn franchise, it has become somewhat of a circus. That's what it is. Backstab one guy backstabs the other one guy backstabs this guy. They fire this guy. One guy say don't hire this guy. They hire this guy. He backstabs him supposedly. Then he brings in another guy. Then he gets promoted and backstab. It's just a bunch of just people stabbing people in the back and hiding their hands. Again, clear everybody out.
That's what they should have done. If Amy Adams Strunk wanted to make a change, it should have involved everyone. It should have involved Ran Carthon. It should have involved Chad Brinker. It should have involved Brian Callahan. Because here's what's going to happen, everybody. The Titans are going to hire a new general manager. They're going to start 1-7 next season. And Brian Callahan's going to get fired. And then another coach is going to come in. And maybe Chad Brinker will no longer be the apple of Amy Adams Strunk's eye. And he'll get fired. And it's a never-ending cycle of turmoil. The Tennessee Titans, how long ago was it, Derek, that this team was the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs? How long ago was that?
Was it 4 years ago?
2021.
So about 4 years ago, or 4 years ago, 4 years ago.
A few years ago,
Mhm.
this team was the best team in the AFC. In 3 years, it's now the worst team in the NFL. I'm almost impressed by how this organization has completely disintegrated in 3 years. They went from the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs to the worst team in the league in 3 years. And the steward of all of that, the lone constant, is Amy Adams Strunk. Mike Vrabel wasn't a part of all of it. John Robinson wasn't a part of all of it. Ran Carthon wasn't. Chad Brinker wasn't. Brian Callahan wasn't. It was Amy Adams Strunk. This just shows me that, I mean, who is she listening to? I mean, clearly she must be listening to Chad Brinker, because Chad Brinker still has his job. Now he has more power. But one thing you talked about with us, when we were preparing for the show yesterday, was, is this going to be a decision based on, clear-headedness, for lack of a better term, or emotion? And it certainly seems to me, Derek, that this was a decision based on the whims of an owner, just by how she felt when she woke up in the morning.
Yeah, it's not. It's confusing, to say the least. And again, you choose to put out here's the part that I'm trying to grapple with here, that I'm grappling with. I don't mind the, making a decision the day after. Many consider, Monday as that cut day.
I believe Tuesday is the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Chase went over this. I believe Jared went over this as well. That Mike Vrabel was fired on a Tuesday. Yeah. John Robinson was fired on a Tuesday.
Tuesdays.
She likes Tuesdays.
Yeah, she likes Tuesdays. So
Texas Tuesday.
There you go. So I don't mind the sort of, if you want to call it, doing your due diligence, and not just, because it was Monday, you're going to do it because every other owner was doing it. They were making changes. But I will say about every other owner is this: 2 things. One, I didn't blame her for doing it on a Tuesday. Those owners outside of New England, those owners fired coaches that had been on a job, or GMs that had been on a job for a good minute. The New England Patriots was the outlier, them firing Gerard Mayo after 1 season. So I wasn't too, I didn't care whether she did it today or she would have waited until tomorrow. It didn't matter to me. If you're going to make a decision like that, I want it to be a well thought out decision and be made based upon not emotion, but based upon, where do I see my franchise headed? And is not just one person culpable for it, is everybody culpable for it? Because this was bad. So I didn't mind that. Everybody else they didn't want to be patient, and everybody else wanted, she had to say something. I'm like, okay, fine, then put it. But what the Jacksonville Jaguars did, and a few other teams, is that their owner or GM came out and took questions.
Yes, Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, held a news conference. John Mara, who I believe is the controlling owner, or the owner of the Giants, he took questions.
Exactly. So you have them taking questions. And I don't mind you. I didn't care whether you did it today or Friday or next Monday. But when you do it, the fan base deserves more than just read this to everybody or put this out. They deserve more than that. And that's the part, again, makes it seem like a circus. They deserve, you talk about how much you respect and love your fan base, but they deserve more than just read this to everybody, Bert. Put this out to everybody, Brinker. I talk possibly in a couple of months, but I just do a Q&A with one person, sort of the Titan network. I do a Q&A, and they do a great job over there. This is not about them. This is about her. She's going to choose to do that instead of answering the questions of everybody that want to know, whether it's Paul, whether it's Jared, whether it's Buck, anybody. Allow them the freedom and the forum to ask you questions. You made a decision once again, and we ain't hear nothing from you but a statement, where the other owners are actually talking. They're talking to their fan base. See, you hired Ran last year, so Ran could be that guy that talks to everybody. So he can be that relationship guy, because you kept saying relationship, not GM. You kept saying relationship, not GM. You put relationship over him being a GM. So maybe you put Ran in that position, but you ain't even let him talk last year. And then you make another decision. Again, it's your franchise. You're going to make the best decision you feel is best for your franchise. But at least give the fans more than just a statement. At least explain to them whether you could be up there on a podium, or you Brinker and Nahil, or you and Nahil. It don't matter. Or you a Brinker. The fans want to see you now. That's what they want to see. I don't care. The fans want to see you. And you ain't showing up for them.
Cam is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Cam, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so good morning, fellas.
Good morning.
So, you know, they don't do a whole lot of recycled GMs in the league, right? You know, I mean, that's
Right.
kind of a big thing. It's always the new up-and-coming GM, or, you know, prospect, whatever you want to call it. But like you were just saying, D-Mace, if everybody around the league is just kind of looking at this juvenile front office where it's just backstabbing and stabbing, what decent up and coming GM or you know, possible GM is going to sign up for this nonsense? Going to sign up to be a part of, because everybody can see, like you were just saying, backstabbing. And I mean, what do you do in that situation? You go, okay, I'm going to do it different. While you're stabbing me in the back, kick my ass too. I mean, come on. I mean, I just don't understand how you're going to find a new up-and-coming GM that wants to be a part of this. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Cam. And I hear what Cam is saying. Who would want to take this job? Well, I'm going to use the old cliche. There are only 32 of these jobs. So somebody is going to take this job. Somebody is going to want this job. But if I am a potential general manager candidate, you best believe, Derek, that when I'm sitting with ownership, I'm asking Amy Adams Strunk. I would be the third different general manager you've had in 4 years. How can you, like, I would want an explanation as to why there is such instability at that position. And I would love to know what that answer is, because we're never going to get it. But I would love to know what that answer is. I would love to be a fly on the wall for that conversation.
Yeah, and any potential, you're right about it. And Big Joe said this too. You know why somebody's going to take it? Because there's only 32 of them, and you want to get in. But here's the caveat to all of that. Yeah, there's only 32 of them, and somebody's going to want to take it, but it's going to be the right person. Are you then going to be doing the same thing a year from now or 2 years from now? Because essentially that's what 2 years from the day you made the decision, you're making another decision. So the way this thing is being ran, make Brinker the GM, let him hire somebody, or don't hire somebody, let him do the GM and president's duty, and go with it from there. But you're going to have people coming in, and if they're worth any salt, they're going to ask the questions that you asked, Adam. Okay, yeah, this is a good job. Yeah, everybody wants to be a GM. I get it. And yeah, it looks good on my resume being a GM of a national football team. But why have y'all cycled through so many GMs in so many years? Why? That's the question I'm asking you. You asked me all the questions. Here's my one question that I need to ask to you. Why have y'all cycled through GMs? Why haven't y'all just started to play over?
615-737-1025. We will take your reaction all show long. You can call us. You can text us on our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Again, that number is 615-737-1025. Coming up next, ESPN NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck will join us. We'll get his thoughts on the Tennessee Titans firing general manager Ran Carthon. We'll do that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D. Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, by the one and only Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst. Tim, it's good to talk to you. It's been a minute. Let's start with the big news of the day. The Tennessee Titans fire general manager Ran Carthon. What are your initial thoughts on that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you just look around the NFL right now, I mean, between, certain coaches being one and done, just even some of the chatter, that could happen more places, than just New England. I would say that's probably, not surprising. Seems like the current culture is that, there's just less and less patience for, losing seasons and feeling like you underperform. So I think probably in that regard, it's not surprising. And then I think the other aspect of it is too, is just, if you, if you're in the front office at the Titans, you'd have to say like, all right, well, like we moved on from Mike Vrabel. Ran Carthon was already in place. Look at what the interest is in Mike Vrabel. And, you probably start to wonder like, all right, well, did we do the right thing then? So I would say, for all of those reasons, I'm not surprised.
So the Tennessee Titans, Tim, are going to start next season with their third different general manager in 4 years. John Robinson started 2022, Ran Carthon in 2023 and 2024, and GM to be determined in 2025. What does that say about this organization in your mind, that they have cycled through so many general managers in a short period of time?
Yeah, I don't know that it, I don't know you can point it on one thing. Look, I think John Robinson did a good job, but then, for whatever the reason, between he and Mike Vrabel, like it just didn't end well, right? And then, whatever, fractures were created in that relationship were created. And so like that was kind of its own experience. And I think that, the situation with Ran is different than that. So like, I don't know that it necessarily says something about the organization. I think it's just more, look, you haven't gotten it right in terms of the players and winning. That typically, fixes some of these situations. And, and so because of that, now you seem to be on this kind of, hamster wheel of like, trying to hire a new general manager or hire a new head coach. And when you don't have consistency and continuity and you don't have those things, it's hard to be good. So I think that's really the story, not necessarily like, hey, there's something just inherently wrong with the organization, and this is why they continue to get it wrong.
Lost in all of this, Tim, is the fact that Brian Callahan will return for his second season as Titans head coach, and we'll see what happens when they hire a new general manager. We often see GMs wanting their own coach, but Brian Callahan is going to return. As you evaluate Brian Callahan's first season as an NFL head coach, what areas did you like in terms of how he coached the team, and where do you see his biggest room for improvement in year two?
Yeah, I think the parts of it that were good were, look, I think that, he has clear convictions in terms of how he wants to build it, how he's going to coach it, the general philosophy of what they're trying to do on offense. Like, I think there were even times, just even late in the season, we kind of got upset about, the notion that the team, wasn't playing hard or was soft or wasn't, tough or physical, those types of things. And I think that, how he responded to that was good. I think how he messaged the quarterback situation, I think was the right way to handle it. So I think there were a lot of good aspects of, how the year went, and in terms of, how things can get better. Look, I mean, ultimately, you just need people to play better, right? Like you need to make fewer mistakes and win more games. And look, I don't want to say like, hey, look, there were special teams issues, right? So like that was a factor. But like, I think it's easy to sit here and say, look, if you just get better, more consistent quarterback play, especially early in the year, then, you don't feel like you're playing uphill and digging yourself out of a hole and, coming in after losses, each and every week. That's hard. Like, and it's hard to dig yourself out of. That's why I think the job that Dave Canales did, in Carolina was really good. Like, he was able to pull them out of that. So I really think that you just need better quarterback play, because you're not gonna lose those 2 games early in the season. And I think the entire feeling about the year and where you're headed changes.
We'll talk with Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst and head coach of the Ainsworth Tigers. Now, Tim, I asked this question of the guys yesterday over text last night, and I'm asking you the same question in regards to the Tennessee Titans. Now, they've made their change. They'll find a new GM, I'm sure, in enough time. But looking at the quarterback situation, because there may not be a deep class in regards to the draft, and then the class of quarterbacks that potentially can be, in this year's free agency, outside of probably Sam Darnold, who's going to be the biggest name. Derek Carr may be thrown in there because he may not take a pay cut. There are other quarterbacks within Carson Wentz, other quarterbacks, Daniel Jones, that may be on the market as well.
Yeah.
Which direction do you think the Titans should go in regards to trying to solve this quarterback situation? Should they try to solve it now with a veteran bridge quarterback, or should they try to solve it now, but knowing later this is our guy, meaning going to draft a guy, letting him play, but knowing that, he gets better as the year goes on?
Yeah, I think here is where I think it gets really tricky. All right, who's making the call, right? Is the head coach making the call? Is the new general manager making a call? The new general manager, you would think, has a few years. And so a new general manager is probably going to prefer the younger player, not the bridge player, because when that guy's contract's up, he doesn't want to have to be looking in the draft and hoping he's picking high enough. So the new general manager would much rather go young now and get it right, because he'll get a second contract. Well, the current head coach, he's already got a year of people maybe a little bit disgruntled and impatient. And so he needs somebody to play well right away. So, and look, not to say that young guys can't play well right away, like Jaden Daniels playing well right away, but like not everyone is, and you don't really know. Look, I think the best thing for the organization, so like, I'm not sitting in either one of those spots. So like what I think would be the best move for the Titans would be this. I believe it's crazy for Minnesota to not do a deal with Sam Darnold. So all those other guys that you talked about, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz, like I'm not going that route. I don't think that's the best thing for the organization. So what I would do is I would try to be in a situation where I call Minnesota and try to get J.J. McCarthy. Because if J.J. McCarthy was coming out in this draft, he would be the number 1 quarterback coming out in this draft. And so, while you don't have the benefit of a 4-year contract and then a 5th-year option on a young quarterback, you do have 3 years and an option year on him. So you're not like, I think J.J. McCarthy over the next 3 seasons never has a cap hit of over $7 million, doesn't have a base salary of over $2 million. And then you obviously, would have the ability, if he was playing well, to extend him. So, I would think that Sam Darnold wants to stay in Minnesota. I would think that Minnesota has to at least consider it. Sam Darnold's just 27 years old. And so I would be on the phone with Minnesota trying to figure out what I could get J.J. McCarthy for. And then you would also get him, you could, presumably, get him sooner than later. And, he's a year more matured, all that stuff. And then he's been also schooled in an offense that is very similar. There'd be terminology carryover between what's going on in Minnesota and what they're doing with the Titans. So that would be the route that I would take. It's not ideal. You might have to give up a first rounder for it, but, with it being such a super hot pick, you maybe ask for something else in return.
Now, in regards to these quarterbacks that are coming out now, I'm not sure if you did extensive, homework on them just yet. But obviously the top 2 quarterbacks are Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. But it seems like guys like Jackson Dart is moving up the charts. The quarterback, Will Howard, seems to be moving up a little bit more. They talked a little bit about Penn State's quarterback. If he chooses to come out, he may be moving up in the ranks. Which one of these quarterbacks that you feel would probably be an ideal pick based upon what you've seen of them and how the Titans are operating, meaning Brian Callahan and how he likes to run his offense?
Yeah, that's tricky, man. It is a little early. I will start to do that stuff, kind of really once we have fewer, NFL games each and every weekend. What's interesting is like the general talk about it is that it's such a weak class. But like you just named, would you name 4 guys, 5 guys that are look, I don't think the kid from Penn State says that he's coming out if he doesn't get information that he's probably going to be a first-round draft pick, right? So in terms of like a fit here in Tennessee, look, I think it's possible that all of them are, right? Like all of them have certain characteristics about them. Now you're talking about a really high pick. And so because of that, like you just take like the kid from Ohio State, like, people are going to say like, all right, well, like, do you take him that high? Is he that kind of prospect? Like, probably not, probably a similar thing with the kid from Penn State. I think athletically, it'd be a different conversation, with the other guys. So look, I think all of them should be evaluated, but I would kind of go back to what I said before about JJ McCarthy. I think that if he were in this class, I think he would be in front of all of them. And so before, you kind of just assume that you're going to go down the path of drafting one of those guys. I think you try to figure out, is JJ McCarthy an option? I would say this too, like Sam Darnold should also be an option. I just think Minnesota would be crazy to not build it around Sam Darnold. It's not like he's 34 years old. He's 27. So like, look, some of it, I guess, if they're one and done in the postseason here and he plays poorly, maybe you can talk yourself into, he had a great regular season, but like when it mattered the most, he didn't play well. Like, I guess you could kind of, talk yourself into that, but I don't think that that's going to happen.
Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, joining us on D-Mays, Fink and Donick. Tim, always a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. See you, fellas.
Yep.
Tim Hasselbeck joining us on the program. 615-737-1025. We want your reaction. So call us, text us, 615-737-1025. We'll do that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Man, I am so thankful that Dan Reeves showed me a little bit more grace than 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I mean, what they expect him to get to the Super Bowl in 2 years? I mean, it's like I don't get this, Jeff. They say, well, we want to see a turnaround. But damn, turnaround doesn't always happen instantly. Yeah, we'd like to see a situation where you get a Jim Harbaugh, he comes in and boom, lightning in the bottle. They have a very good quarterback, a top 5 quarterback in Justin Herbert. They have a lot of pieces. You look at Khalil Mack, you look at Derwin James, you look at Joey Bosa. They got pieces. They had 2 first-round picks, but Slater was a first-round pick. They take Joe Alt, the running back, J.K. Dobbins, and they come back and they play well. But damn, at some point in time, you got to give a person more than a year or 2 years to turn things around. Am I a little biased? Yes, I know Ran Carthon personally. And when he got the job, I reached out and talked to him because we've been friends over a couple of years. He was in the league when I was in the league. But man, come on now. Damn, Saturday, you got to give guys a little bit more time than 1 to 2 years if you want to see turnaround. Change does not happen overnight.
That was Shannon Sharpe on First Take earlier today, reacting to the news that the Tennessee Titans have fired general manager Ran Carthon. But this segment is for you. Let's get to the phones. Adam in Portland on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam, thank you for calling, my friend. Please go ahead.
You're gonna think I'm like just messing around with this. I seriously think Jeff Fisher is in her mind like as a candidate, and I hope he is. Because if the only problem with Ran, in my opinion, is that he was brand new to this. He does not know how to talk. He didn't communicate very well to the fans. I think he's gotten his own way with a lot of that. But when it came to like personnel, I like Tajay. I like the pick. I don't think we've seen all that's going to be from the 2 linemen he picked high. I think she wants somebody who's going to take away how bad she looks right now. And Jeff Fisher would do that. He was so good at the media stuff. So I would consider, and especially if it's going to be, I see you shaking your head, D-Mace, but if you want somebody that's just going to be a puppet for Chad Brinker or whatever, they want to go like peanut butter and jelly or ham and tuna or whatever, man, whatever, that's fine. They can make choices together, but Jeff Fisher would soften all this crap for them. And I'm here for that because I know Jeff is an awesome Titan in history. So I would support something like that. A lot of people wouldn't, but I would.
Thanks for calling, Adam. Derek, since you worked with Jeff Fisher, I will leave it to you to respond to Adam. What do you make of that idea?
I'm not sure that's the route that she's going to go down. Because listen, I think they are so far removed from that era that they choose not to go back.
And we had talked about a few weeks ago Jeff Fisher as like a conduit to the fans and some sort of advisory capacity where his job was mostly communicating the message from the organization, because we do know that Jeff Fisher is comfortable in front of a microphone.
I can see,
and if they
Jeff
wanted something like that, I could listen to that argument, but him as general manager,
will he? I mean, my thing is, would he be up to it? I don't know. Maybe he would take the job, but then what does the job entail? Excuse me. What does the job entail? Because on one hand, this is supposed to be your job, and then on the other hand, this is supposed to be your job. What is your exact, not just title? Show me what you do.
You're giving me
just take me through what you do every day.
Have you ever seen the movie Office Space?
Yes.
Okay. There's a classic scene in the movie Office Space. And this is what I think about every time I hear the name Chad Brinker. But it goes to your point about tell us what you do. The Bobs, the consultants, are in the building at Initech talking to all of these software engineers and other people about their jobs because the company is looking to downsize. And Tom Smikowski is in this meeting, and he's fumbling and bumbling over what his job description is. And one of the Bobs, played by John C. McGinley, who most people might know as Dr. Cox on the show Scrubs on NBC, says, "What would you say you do here?" And that's what I think about every time I hear Chad Brinker's name. What do you say you do here? And apparently he's going to be doing a lot more. But to your point, there's the Titans have worked so hard to here is what everybody's job is, but I feel like it's made it even more confusing.
See, here's my main issue with potentially what Wes, right? Wes,
Who just called?
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
Adam.
No,
in
Adam,
Portland.
excuse me. I'm sorry, Adam. I was thinking Wes. Adam, here's the problem that I had. It's not that I don't think that, Jeff would not do the job he needs to do, or not go in there with the attitude of I'm going to fix this, because I'm sure that's his personality. It's like he's a head coach. It's like, I can get it done. I can be the one that turn this around. And he just may be right about that in his thinking. He's probably right in his thinking. Could it actually happen? I don't know. But here's the part that I think he has to weigh. Right now, he's considered a hero around here. Right now, when they talk, people make fun of the, that eighth of, 8-8, every year, Jeff Fisher.
Mr. 500.
Exactly.
Didn't Jeff Fisher have say over personnel matters when he was with the Rams?
I don't know. I know Les Snead was there, right? Les Snead was his GM. So if I'm not mistaken, I don't think he had sole control. He could. I don't know.
I know who knows this, and I think he's probably listening. But
I
Jared,
think he did, because
Jared,
they moved.
if you know the answer to that, text me.
They moved from St. Louis to LA. I think he had a
Yes.
bigger role. It wasn't just the head coach. I
Yeah.
think it might have been president, something
Right.
like that. But here's the deal with it, is that right now he's beloved here. People like him. They make fun of the 8-8, but all in all, I think people respect and love, they love it even more, considering where this team is at now, of what that era of Jeff Fisher and Floyd Reese, what it was about. They love Jeff for that. So they see him that way. He comes into a situation right now that's basically a circus and a cluster. And if it doesn't get fixed, now he goes from being the guy that everybody loves to now the guy that everybody hates, because he couldn't fix this franchise. When in fact, this franchise seems to be so in disarray. I don't know who can fix it at this point. So that's why I shake my head and say, maybe not Jeff, because I think people see Jeff in a good light right now. And if he comes on and it doesn't get fixed, he will be seen as the bad guy, the guy that couldn't fix it.
Alex from Montreal is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Bonjour, Alex. Please go ahead.
Bonjour. Happy New Year, by the way, everybody.
Hey, same to you.
Thank you. I just want to say I've been a fan since 1989, so I've seen the highs and the lows. I've stuck with this team, and I feel like this is a real low right now. I just want somebody over there or anybody that calls after me to give me some hope and optimism. There's been a lot of negativity today. I'm just looking maybe for some optimism. I'll hang up and listen. Thank you, guys. Great show.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for
Thank you,
calling.
Alex.
I hear what Alex is
Yeah.
saying. Fans want hope. They want their team
That's why the owner should have
to
came
be
out today.
good. Perhaps, but it's hard to look at what this team has been over the past few years. As we discussed earlier, the number one seed in the AFC playoffs. We know how it turned out, but they were the number one seed in the AFC playoffs. The AFC playoffs ran through Nashville, if that's how it was going to go before they lost to the Bengals. But they went from that to this in only a matter of a few years. So there really isn't a lot to be hopeful about. Derek, you brought up, Tim brought up Dave Canales and the Carolina Panthers. You texted us the other day about Bryce Young, how since Bryce Young got back into the lineup, the Panthers started playing a little bit better. He started playing a little bit better. That season did not go well for the Panthers. The Panthers haven't had a lot to be excited about. But if you're a Panthers fan and you see the way that the team ended the season, perhaps you can feel a little optimistic that, hey, maybe things are finally going in the right direction. Contrary, here, it's going in the complete wrong direction. So I hear what Alex is saying. Fans want hope. That's what the number one overall pick is for, right? That represents the biggest hope. But it's really hard to come up with reasons for this team to be hopeful and their fans to be hopeful right now.
But that's where the owner, that's her responsibility. Again, I didn't care whether she made the decision today or next Tuesday. It didn't matter to me. But when you make that decision, you and you alone need to be the one that's talking to the fan base, because that's your fan base. You talk to them. Don't send a press release. You talk to them. Get in front of the camera. Let them see your face. You say this was a difficult, situation for you. It was difficult to fire him because of Rand and his personalities. You didn't hire him. Well, I guess you did hire him for his personalities and not to be a GM. Basically, that's what it seems like. You hired him for the personality. You hired him because he could do the talking to all the people that you didn't want to do the talking to, nor did Nahil want to do the talking to, the football people. So you hired him, and then y'all forced him to hire Brinker, and then y'all promote Brinker, and then y'all fire him. It's a circus, and they wanted to hear from you, Amy, today that no, it's not a circus. This is where we're heading. You see my face. This is where we're heading. I'm going to get it right. You've sent, pressers before, and the fan base told you they didn't like it, and you did it again. I'm just telling you what the fan base is saying.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts all show long on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next, what are the Titans looking for in their next general manager? Well, we'll explain. Coming up next, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D-Mace, Vingen and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason, Adam Vingen here with you. Willie Donick will join us within the next 30 minutes or so. Predators are in Winnipeg. He's handling those responsibilities. Then he'll be with us. Can't wait to hear what Willie has to say about all of this. The news of the day. The Tennessee Titans have fired general manager Ran Carthon after 2 seasons. Amy Adams Strunk, controlling owner of the Tennessee Titans, said in a statement, quote, "I love the time I've spent with Ran. He's a talented football mind, a great man, and a friend to everyone along his path. It's impossible to ignore that our football team hasn't improved over the past 2 years. I am deeply disappointed in our poor win-loss record during this period, of course, but my decision also speaks to my concern about our long-term future should we stay the course. I love this team more than you can imagine. To our fans, we know this level of performance isn't acceptable. We're humbled by your support as we continue to work towards building the team you expect and deserve." That was Amy Adams Strunk in the statement. Now, this was part of a larger story written by Jim White at TennesseeTitans.com. It includes quotes from Burke Nihill, president and CEO of the Tennessee Titans, as well as Chad Brinker, the president of football operations. So in the story, Brinker spells out what he's looking for in the new general manager. Now, Derek, although I
Yes.
have made a career as a reporter, I was never great at reading comprehension. So sometimes I have to read things multiple times to make sure that I understand it. And there are things in here that we'll get to today and for the days and weeks coming that I had to read 3 or 4 times. And I was like, I have no idea what these people are saying. But this is what Chad Brinker said to Jim White about what he is looking for in a new general manager, because Chad Brinker is going to be leading the search. Quote, "I think the general manager position is unique to the respective organizations. This particular job, what we will be looking for is someone who has spent their career as a scout, is a top flight, top level evaluator who has spent the majority of their career projecting college players to the National Football League. They've had a major hand in setting the draft board and preferably a consistent winning organization, and you can see their fingerprints all over the roster. It is someone who wakes up every single day, and the only thing they think about is building a roster, evaluating players, watching tape, working with the coaching staff, and not just someone who knows how to collect talent, but someone who really understands how to build a team and how all the pieces fit together that I can work with, not only in the short term, winning today, but building for the future, the long term, and understanding how all those pieces fit together. If you make a decision here, how it impacts a decision down the road, and really understand the full puzzle. At the end of the day, this person is going to be all ball all day. They are going to focus on the roster and the coaching staff, and I'll continue in my role with handling all the other areas that surround the center of our program, scouting and coaches. So I will support that person, but we are looking for a general manager who wakes up every day and is focused on building the team," end quote. Here's the first thing I thought, Derek, when I read that. Apparently, Ran Carthon didn't work very hard, because when I saw some of those quotes, I saw some subtle digs. At the end of the day, this person is going to be all ball all day. We are looking for a general manager who wakes up every day and is focused on building the team. What that says to me is the Tennessee Titans did not believe that Ran Carthon woke up every morning focused on building the team. Now, this could just be me reading between the lines. This could be me, this could be the Titans. I don't know. My point is that if you look at those quotes, they do not reflect well on Ran Carthon.
No, they don't. But didn't you say that? And I'm not talking about you, Adam. I'm just talking about the brass over at the Titan facility. Didn't they come out with this statement of, everybody's on the same, everybody's on the same plane. Everybody's thinking the same. We're all, Callahan talks to me. I talk to Brinker. We all share the information with Amy. Everybody's on the same boat. We're all thinking the same. We're all thinking, about building this franchise and building this roster. Everybody's thinking, everybody's walking in the same direction.
Do you want me to read to you the quote from Amy Adams Strunk from less than a year ago?
Go ahead. And that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. Go ahead.
This was Amy Adams Strunk on January 24th, 2024. So less than a calendar year ago, when the Titans promoted Ran Carthon. This is what Amy Adams Strunk said, quote, "Over the past year, Ran has impressed me and our staff with his innovative approach to roster building. Ran's exceptional reputation around the league as a talent evaluator and culture builder was a clear competitive advantage during last year's free agency and draft process, as well as our recent search for a head coach. Simply put, Ran Carthon makes the Tennessee Titans a destination for the league's top talent. By expanding his role to include full roster control and oversight of the coaching staff, our organization will now benefit more completely from Rand's unique ability to build and lead a championship caliber football team. Spoiler, none of that happened. But that was Amy Adams Strunk less than a calendar year ago.
But then you say all of this, Brinker.
Chad Brinker.
Jack Brinker. Then you put out this pressure that says all of this. That's why I said, to me, it's just a bunch of backstabbing, man. Listen, everybody that got hired last year or the year before were set up to fail, because I don't think it was all done in the proper order. And sometimes when you don't do things in the proper order, things tend to sort of dissolve very quickly, or erode very quickly. And it just seemed like the Titans didn't do this in the correct order. So this is what they're getting as the aftermath of it, where you got to then, the same guy that was hired after the GM is the guy that's now in charge of releasing the pressure and give his thoughts and how he wants the next GM to be. Well, you might as well be the GM, because to me, these words were telling it, and I'm sort of paraphrasing here. These words are telling. When they said Rand was one, they said they needed someone to not just be able to acquire talent, but then they said on the other hand, Rand was good at relationships and getting guys to come.
Yes.
You see how those two kind of go together?
Yes. There was a lot made of Rand's, how personable he is and how that
Rand, go do the shucking and jiving for us and get the people to come.
All right.
But no.
But you said that, not me.
Yes. And when I mean shucking and jive, I mean laugh, glad hand, shake, shake hands, kiss babies and all that. I'm not talking about from a racial standpoint. I know people took it that way, but that's what I'm talking about. Go shuck and jive, go laugh with everybody, get everybody to come, because you got these great relationships. Get everybody to come in, and then that's all you're tasked to doing. But then, somebody needs to develop them. But his purpose for coming in, it seems like, was to get other guys to come in here. You just had to give him the title GM because that made it a little bit easier for individuals to say, oh, Rand's the GM. I have a great relationship with him. I'm going to be working, with him if I'm an agent or a player. Let's go there, because we know Rand. I know he's a good guy. We're going to go there. When in fact, it should have been, listen, I understand relationships are great, but I need a guy that's going to build and sort of guide my team the way it needs to be. I'm not saying that Rand wasn't that guy, but it seems like you just brought him in for one thing and one thing only. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to give you these other titles just because we sort of kind of got to give them to you. But this is what we really want you to do. We want you to be the face of not the team. We want you to be the face of the executive team, not the football team. We want you to be the face of the executive team and the voice of the executive team when it comes to football. Just go out there and get the talent. But they didn't think, well, who's going to develop the talent? They didn't think that. They just said, Rand, go get them. But who's going to develop them? That's like saying, hey, just go get the food, but you ain't got nobody to cook it. But then they said, let Rand, people were calling and said, let Rand cook. Well, hell, they ain't get Rand no utensils or a pot in the pan to cook. They just said, hey, go shop. And they didn't know what to do after that. That's the way it seems. Because to me, wasn't Rand that guy that you just described, Brinker? Wasn't Rand that guy last year? Or well, yeah, it was last year. It hadn't even been a calendar year like you said. Isn't this that guy that they talked about? Ran Carthon, when they hired Ran Carthon, isn't this the same thing that they talked about with him? Like, he was the guy, but now all of a sudden he's not the guy. You should have cleaned house. You should have cleaned house, Amy. You should have cleaned house, started over. You and Bert Nihill should have, collectively got together with some other people, maybe called Jeff to help you find a true GM/head coach. Again, Callahan is like collateral. He's like collateral damage. Like, he would have been collateral damage had you fired everybody, because I too believe he deserved another opportunity. But if you're going to fire one, you need to fire everybody. And he would have just been, you got hit by a stray, because you were around. So You got to go just like everybody else got to go. But man, oh man, you're gonna keep on. The fear is for me, and I don't know if this is the fear for other Titan fans, is that this carousel is going to continue. They may have a good 1 or 2 years, but this is going to continue. It's going to happen again and again and again.
I mean, think about the Bears. They have hired a general manager, hired a head coach, then fired that head coach, and both general manager and head coach get fired the next year, and then the next guys didn't draft their quarterback. So it's like it's a continuous cycle since like 2015 or something like that. So I mean, you're just basically the new Bears. Without Super Bowl.
I do hope they get it right this time. I hope that who Brinker is looking for, that guy, that all of y'all on the same, all y'all thinking the same, all y'all headed down the hallway the same way. I hope that they do find that guy, because if you don't, man, oh man, you think the fan base is on you now, and they're disappointed and disgusted now. If you don't get this right, if next season isn't different, and when I say different, I'm not talking about 5 wins. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about 6 wins, because you've made enough changes where you should be, the next year coming up, you should be better than 6 wins. If they don't have more than 6 wins, then the fan base is going to be on you even harder.
Eric is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Eric, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys, a couple of things. First of all, Derek, I 1,000% agree with you. I thought that if you're going to fire Ran, you should have fired Callahan, too. Fire both or either bring them both back. This just absolutely makes no sense. And I'm a season ticket holder. How much longer I'm going to do this, I don't know. Like I said, the most I would do it is 2 more years, because I'm not going to be able to afford a new stadium anyway. But I just don't know. I don't want to react emotionally, because I love this football team, want them to do better. I kind of like you with the whole Callahan thing. I thought bare minimum he has to double his wins, but that's 6 wins. But whether or not that's enough, I don't know, because I think he's on the clock too, or whether or not he'll be back. I've got 2 GM names. One, this is kind of a joke name, because I don't think one she'll offer to this individual. Another 2, I don't think he would come here. I think he turned it down. But I guess for a PR move, I said Peyton Manning, but that's not going to happen. First of all, like I said, she won't do it. And even if she did, he'll turn it down. But that would be a PR move. But the other one, this is one I'm real serious about. But I also don't think she's going to offer this job to this individual. But I think he could be a great hire. And I'm sure you've heard his name thrown around a bunch of places. And that's Louis Riddick from ESPN. But one, I don't think she would offer him the job. And number 2, even if she did, would he come here? I don't know. I've heard he's been offered the job, or at least not offered, but he's supposed to do an interview with the Jets. I've heard his name thrown out for years. Great football mind. But that's one I would definitely feel comfortable with if you could get Louis Riddick. I just want to hear your thoughts on that. Guys, it's always good to talk to you. Y'all take care. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Eric. So Eric suggests Louis Riddick, who has interviewed for jobs in the past. I think he was in the GM cycles last year as well. He's been on TV for a long time.
Yeah.
When was the last time Riddick held a position with an NFL team?
Gosh, it's been some years.
And this is not to say that Louis Riddick doesn't know what he's talking about. He's clearly a smart individual. I don't know how I feel about the guy coming from the television booth to be. So according to Wikipedia, which I know is not the end all be all, he was the Philadelphia Eagles director of pro personnel between 2010 and 2013. So it's been more than 10 years since Louis Riddick has been an executive in the NFL.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not saying that Louis Riddick wouldn't do a good job. I mean, listen, if they got, all I say is get it right, or you're going to be on this carousel once again. Now, the Peyton Manning deal, I think he has ownership in Denver, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure.
So if indeed that's the case, he wouldn't be up for a GM job anyway, because he has some stake in the Denver Broncos. If I'm correct about that, I may not be correct about that. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't care who you hire. I hope it's the right hire for the right reasons to get this franchise back on track. Because if it's not the right hire for the right reason, you're going to be doing this again. I guarantee you will be doing this again next year, because you will be then firing your head coach. So you need to get a GM that both he and the head coach are on the same page.
One texter says, based on what's come out, it shifted from Callahan and Ran to Ran and Brinker. Fire both or let both stay. Quit finding scapegoats and just focus on getting better. One other texter says, Amy seems to have a problem with peeing down our leg and saying it's raining. It seems at this point, Amy is more interested in saving face than building a good football team. I'm sure Hair Metal Henry is joking. He says Tom Brady for general manager, if for nothing more than to get him the hell off the airwaves. Well, Tom Brady does have an ownership stake in the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yes.
So
Peyton Manning does not, by the way.
Oh, he doesn't?
He
Okay.
doesn't know.
Dustin in Hopkinsville says it's guaranteed to keep happening. Amy's incompetent. If this were a small business, you'd have drama with employees, and it wouldn't last year. I agree. Clean house. The guy you fired hired the guy you're keeping. Make it make sense already. Double pay Vrabel and Robinson. She got lucky with them and pissed it away. I'm not sure that we're going to see that, obviously. Mike Vrabel is, he's probably going to be the coach of the Patriots, but he's interviewing for lots of different jobs. Brian is in Atlanta calling us. Brian, thank you so much for waiting. Please go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing, guys?
Good, thank you.
So I'm a huge Titans fan. I'm originally from Nashville, and I've been with the Titans since D. Mason and them came from Houston. And this is the ongoing thing. The Titans are going to tighten. They're not going to do anything to be better. It feels like as a fan, they could care less. And them just firing Rand is using him as a scapegoat. Why fire him and not the other guy? Wasn't they making decisions together? All of it just don't make sense.
Thanks for the call, Brian.
Thank you, Ryan. You're right. This is what they sold everybody. Again, you can't sell it to me, and then when it don't work, you try to, backtrack on that. I see too much of that every day when I'm watching television. Don't do it in the realm of football, please. Okay? But that seems like what you're doing. It's like, okay, yeah, you're telling us all of this, that all of this is happening at the beginning when the relationship is great and everybody's on the same, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, no, it ain't happening that way. Like, it's a circus. That's all I can say. Your fan base is telling you, even though you made this decision, they're not even satisfied with that. They're still upset. Because what they believe in their minds, whether they are right or wrong, is that you are doing it the same exact way you did it before, and which we are going to get the same exact results. That's what the fan base is saying now. They're not upset. Well, I'm not going to say all of them aren't. They're not upset that you fired Rand, but that you chose to keep the guy that Rand brought in, and that y'all said y'all all were walking in unison together. Y'all all were thinking the same. One guy thought one way, and he told the other. They all were in collaboration, even though they didn't use the word collaboration. They used a new word. But basically, y'all all were in sync together. And then now say, oh, this guy wasn't in sync with us. Well, all y'all need to be fired. That's just me.
Alex is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Alex, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
No, thank you. It's kind of baffling what they're doing right now. I mean, they signed him to a 4-year extension and turn around and fire him. Yeah, I mean, why give him the opportunity to stay this long? Not even give him the opportunity to finish it out and try and build the team that he's been trying to put together. I don't know. It's dumb. Sorry. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Alex.
Alex was fast. I mean, again, I just, like I said before, it doesn't surprise me that she did it. It's not going to affect me in my life. I just hope they get it right this time, and quit trying to fool your fan base. Quit trying to, just be honest with your fan base. And I think last all season you were not honest with your fan base. None of y'all were. Nobody was honest with your fan base over there. Nobody that was talking was honest. So if none of y'all were honest, you only end up firing one guy. If nobody was honest over there in regards to how they, portrayed this team to be, you only fire one guy. Again, Brian Callahan would have just been like a stray. This ain't about Brian Callahan, but if you're going to do it, you need to do a clean slate. But after all that you said last year, and you just say, oh, I'm firing you. And I'm going to keep the guy that you supposedly hire, even though I don't even think Ran hired him. I think that was over Ran's head, and he was forced to work with Brinker. Hence, they promoted Brinker over him the next following year. And they gave him some more, another title just to appease him, just to say, no. This doesn't mean, this is not an indictment on you. Here, listen, we're going to give you an extra title. This is not an indictment on you, Ran. We're just going to, promote Brinker over you. That's all. But don't worry about it. So I would advise anybody that takes the Tennessee Titan job, I'm going to tell you this, 2 things that are going to be a warning sign to you to let you know you've been fired. 3 things. 1, they may hire somebody over you. That's 1. That's sort of like the last case. 2, they may extend your contract. They may do that. So if they do those 2 things, yeah. But if they do that 3rd thing, if she don't come to that game, or you don't see in that locker room, yeah, you might as well pack your stuff, man. You might as well pack your bags and say, okay, have the movers at your house, because she will fire you on Tuesday.
2 man and Chuck. Go get them.
2 minutes. They will fire you on a Tuesday.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts all show long. We've got a lot of text to get into and some phone calls as well. But coming up next, I'm going to make a prediction as to who the next Tennessee Titans general manager is going to be. And I'll give it to you next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. This is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his wonderful staff at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose some weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a goal to lose some weight or to shed some extra pounds, only to come up short and disappointed. But here, I got some solutions for you, okay? And it starts with my good folks over at Cool Springs MD. Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplement, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. Believe me, trust me, I went and got my blood test, and I love to see how my body is reacting to certain things and where I'm deficient at and whatnot. And Dr. Lodge and his teams help me out. His team helps me out each and every time that I go. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
Hey, Preds fans, don't miss Smashville Live Thursday night at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue at 6 o'clock. It's just been relayed to me by the suit Chase McCabe that the Predators' guests will be Mark Jankowski and Colton Sissons. So, Predators fans, get out to Smashville Live Thursday at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue at 6 o'clock. Player guests Mark Jankowski and Colton Sissons. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, talking, of course, the news of the day. The Tennessee Titans have fired Ran Carthon. And Chad Brinker will lead the search. Willie is here. Hello, Willie.
Hello, guys.
Hi, Willie. I'm glad you're here. We'll get your thoughts on all of this. But first, I have a prediction I want to make. So Chad Brinker is going to lead the search for the next general manager. And in Jim Wyatt's story, Jim Wyatt writes, quote, ultimately, Brinker, Callahan, and the new general manager will work together to make decisions. Burke Nihill, president and CEO, said Brinker will, quote unquote, break ties with respect to the 53-man roster, I should say. Nihill continues, quote, is it important to Amy to have absolute clarity in the football organization. And so while the general manager position will have the primary responsibility on all these things Chad is describing in terms of the day-to-day of overseeing the roster and the coaching staff, Chad is the leader of the football program, so Chad will be the final authority on all football matters, including the roster. So before the break, Willie, I said, here's my prediction as to who the new general manager is going to be. It's going to be Chad Brinker. And I'm going to use a hockey example, Willie, that I know you will appreciate. Within the past couple of years, the Pittsburgh Penguins hired Kyle Dubas, who was the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs for several years. They hired him as the president of hockey operations and interim general manager. They fired their other president of hockey operations, Brian Burke, and their general manager, Ron Hextall. So Dubas was president of hockey operations and interim general manager. After conducting a search, the Penguins came back and said, you know what, Kyle Dubas, you're going to be the general manager. And that's what ended up happening, is that he was supposed to lead a search for the general manager, and he ultimately decided on himself. So Kyle Dubas is the president of hockey operations and general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins. That is why I expect Chad Brinker to be the president of football operations and the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, because it sounds like he really is the general manager based on that quote from Burke Nihill. Willie, what do you make of that?
I think that's really the crux of the whole story here of the news that Ran Carthon is out, is in a year's time, and really winding it back to when Ran Carthon brought in Chad Brinker, how it evolved from a point where Ran Carthon was a GM trying to get assimilated into the Mike Vrabel world in a short period of time because of the abruptness of Amy Adams firing John Robinson during the season, right? That was a whole thing in itself. Then, without a lot of fanfare, Ran Carthon brings in Chad Brinker, right? Here's my guy. Here's my analytics guy. The Titans were pretty famous throughout the league of not really having an identity of analytics with the Times. They didn't have nearly as many resources. There were articles written about how the Titans have a lot less people in the house that look at that stuff. John Robinson basically said, I'm not really into that, in so many words. And how it's evolved since then until today is pretty interesting. And we the three of us were texting last night about how last summer, after Brian Callahan was hired and Mike Vrabel was fired, how there was a rollout, if you will, of the new hierarchy, if you will, where Chad Brinker appeared to be elevated. Ran Carthon's role seemed to be sort of streamlined, and they made a big to-do about how everybody's going to know their role, etc. And now you have this less than 1 year later. That is a really interesting pathway to follow, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know what was going on behind the scenes, because I clearly don't. But, Adam, to answer your question in a nutshell, I would say that there are a lot of teams that have somebody above the GM who's really kind of running the show. They also may or may not have a person with the GM title. Titles can mean whatever you really want them to mean. In reality, I think I've learned that over my professional career. Because a guy has a certain title or a woman has a certain title, you can't really tell what they do until you watch them day in and day out.
Jerry is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jerry, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Afternoon, guys. What I see happening is Chad Brinker is trying to get a group behind to pull up a corporate takeover. And my solution would be get Jelly Roll and a lot of these country artists to get a group together and buy the Titans.
Thanks for the call, Jerry. Jelly Roll, controlling owner of the Tennessee Titans. Could it be worse than it is right now?
It may get. It can. Don't ever say it can't get worse. It can.
That's a fair point. That's what you think it can get worse.
It can get worse. Listen,
not to say anything that maybe Jelly Roll could do it.
Yeah, he probably could.
I'm not going to put anything past Jelly Roll. He knows what he's doing.
I suggest Nate Bargatze should be the new owner. He's got that Netflix money rolling in now after he did that special.
Yeah, but this, I mean,
which I highly recommend, by the way. That's a good special.
It just sounds of it. This doesn't. I'm sure this doesn't look well in NFL circles. You know, for you to be on this constant, sort of carousel with, executives, GMs, presidents, head coach, it don't matter. Don't you understand? And I said this to Adam Willing, because people are just looking at the here and now, like now. And I understand, because a lot of times we become a society of here and now. But I think sometimes, well, not sometimes, all the time, in order to not repeat, things, you got to recognize there was a past.
Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
Absolutely. So you got to understand and know there's a history to why you're here. And please, let's not repeat that history. Willie, you were here and I was just leaving, but you caught the brunt of all of it. Doesn't it seem similar again to the whole Floyd and Jeff, just like how this whole relationship and how nobody really understands and knows, and it seems like one guy was sort of trying to get over on the other guy, and they end up pushing one guy out, and then a whole bunch of backlash came from that. And we know what came, and we heard what came of that on these airwaves, but it seemed like you didn't learn from what your dad went through. And you're repeating the same thing over again. And I think the new Titan fans don't understand that we've seen this song, we've heard this song, and we've seen this movie before. And it didn't turn out right. And it took them some years to really build back up the organization. It took them a long time. It seems like we're seeing the same thing over again.
I can recall a lot of times, Derek, while you were playing, we spent a lot of time discussing the dynamic of Bud Adams being in Houston, fairly disconnected to what was happening in Nashville. He had his own way of following and getting information. And so you could see that Floyd Reese and Jeff Fisher separately were having lines of communication. They weren't always on the same page. And if you recall, they brought in a third executive in Jeff Diamond to also sort of be a mediator between the two. That worked for a while, and then after a while, Jeff Diamond was the one to go. So there was always things behind the scenes that had you wondering, how smoothly are the lines of communication going, especially when the owner is detached from the community. They're not in the office every day, right? I think that creates something that is pretty unique, and I do think that happens with the Titans operation. For example, you've got Burke Nihill in there. Burke Nihill, nobody hears from him through the entire season. Have you guys heard anything from Burke Nihill throughout the season?
Other than trying to sell tickets.
Now you have him.
Other than trying to sell season
exactly.
tickets.
His job is to get the stadium going. His job is to sell tickets, his stuff. And all of a sudden, here he comes to weigh in on where the football operation is going on. That's weird to me. That doesn't look like a smoothly run chain.
She just repeat what her dad did. This is her dad's template.
Right.
That's just as far as
Exactly.
hierarchy. It's not
Right.
it's not like it's her own vision and thought of how things should be. It's basically she's doing it like her dad.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Bobby.
I don't disagree with that at all. And I think at the crux of it, I would like to know, and I have no idea, what happened in the relationship of Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker from day one when he was hired, Brinker, to in the closing weeks, where it appears that somewhere Amy Adams said, Chad Brinker is the guy I want running it, but I don't need Rand anymore. That is what I would like to know. What changed from last summer or last spring when they were saying, boy, we've got this great new operation. We're going to add layers. Chad Brinker's creating this great system that we haven't had before. There's going to be an analytics department. We're going to get the scouts on the same team with analytics. We're going to have this. We're going to have all of this great stuff, and Rand can just evaluate talent and play to his strengths. That's what basically the message was. Rand talked in detail about it. Brinker talked in detail about it. What happened? What changed?
615-737-1025. We'll get into that a little bit on the other side, as well as take your texts and calls on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Hey, we have 75% off everything right now at theGameNashville.com/deals. That's right. All of Nashville's best deals are marked down lower than ever. Go to theGameNashville.com/deals for 75% off great eats like Brewster's Real Ice Cream, Soar Adventure Park, Fog Street Lawn Club, and so much more. Everything's got to go, so you better go fast to theGameNashville.com/deals while supplies last.
All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. Stop letting the high interest debt weigh you down in 2025. If you're a homeowner, look into Loan Pronto's new rapid equity loan. They have AI-driven tech. They can get you approved for cash from your home's equity in as little as 1 day. No hassles. They can get you with no appraisal, no paperwork, no waiting. This is a much more streamlined process, and it's better than ever. And what it does is it gets you cash to address what you need. If you want to start a home improvement project this spring, maybe when the weather thaws out a little bit, although I saw some people doing some pretty serious construction in the last couple of cities. Calgary, they're building a new arena. They were working, it was like 1 degree outside, but that's neither here nor there. The bottom line is, if you need cash, Loan Pronto can get it out of your home's equity, and you can be on a better financial track here in 2025. Instant approvals, low fixed rates, fast transfers. Call Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781 on approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
We have breaking news into First Take this morning. The Titans have fired general manager Ran Carthon after 2 seasons and a 9-25 record. The Titans ended this year tied for the worst record in the league and hold the #1 overall pick in this upcoming draft. The news clearly caught the eye of Deion Sanders, whose son Shador is currently thought to be one of the top quarterbacks off the board. He commented with the news on X saying, "Wow," with the eyes emoji. Hey, Stephen A., the eyes emoji is one of my favorite emojis, in case anyone wanted to know. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I'd love to make a case for him. Obviously, I'm somebody in the media that has advocated for Black individuals in leadership positions for some time. But at the end of the day, you got to do the job. And they're 9-25 over the last 2 seasons. He was the GM in his first year there, elevated his role, expanded his role to executive as well as GM this past season, and they've had their worst season in years. They finished 3-14 after going 6-11 the year before and losing Mike Vrabel. So you knew heads were going to roll. We can create questions about ownership and do they know what they're doing, and I understand that. I don't have a problem with them keeping Brian Callahan because this was his first year, and we know Will Levis, Mr. Mayonnaise himself, was a disaster on too many occasions, costing them games. So we certainly can't ignore that. But in the end, like I said, we want Jeff, we want opportunities, we want equal opportunities. But when you get that opportunity, you got to do the job. And what you can't do is go in the wrong direction. You might stay still, you might be a bit stagnant or what have you, and you just might need more time to do your job. But when you go in the wrong direction, sometimes a decision has to be made. And unfortunately, I believe this was one of those times.
That was Stephen A. Smith on First Take reacting to the breaking news earlier this morning that the Tennessee Titans have fired general manager Ran Carthon. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you reacting. Look, we're going to be sifting through this for the next days and weeks, so we've got a lot to get into. But we're all just trying to get a hold of what the heck is going on over at St. Thomas Sports Park.
Isn't Stephen A. Smith a great example from afar of the take of GM is 9-20, whatever, GM gets fired? But to me, that doesn't get down to what the real story is to me, because they kept Chad Brinker. Like, they didn't blow everybody out. They kept everybody but Ran. So that implies basically, and D-Mace, look, you and I were pretty passionate at the end of last year on the narrative as the Vrabel crew exited. There were a lot of reporters that, if you really read between the lines, they were getting a pretty clear message from Vrabel, from Diana Rossini to some others, that Ran was not Vrabel's guy. And Ran was basically, Vrabel was saying, hey, I'm not sure he's ready to do this job. Let's have a structural change. So then Amy fires Vrabel, but then does kind of make a structural change, right? And elevates Brinker. And I don't know what you want to say. I say streamlined. Like, she didn't take Ran Carthon's title away or anything like that, but she tweaked the role, right? They put this new plan out there and they told everybody what they were going to do. But somewhere in here, I think Ran internally seemed to not have a lot of faith around him from his peers. Is that fair to say? And I didn't want to believe that, right? I don't feel like he's getting the benefit of the doubt. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I do have to wonder what was happening internally, because from afar, I think they inherited most of the mess. And as you heard Stephen A. say, the number one reason why they're in this position is because the quarterback played so poorly that they centered everything around.
Derek, before you answer that, during the break, you were corresponding with someone that you trust in the Titans organization. I thought it was pretty interesting. I would love if you shared it with our listeners.
Because you and I have been going back and forth, and now Willie, and all three of us were going back and forth last night and this morning, more so really this morning too, because the news came down. And reading the press releases and everything else, it just started to seem a little weird to me. So I'm like, I want to know if I'm the only person thinking this, or because I ran it past you guys and whatnot. And I just threw it out there that, you know, hey, listen, this is my take. Say, hey, I'm going to just mention, where's it at? Okay, it seems like this structure last year was done over Rand's head, but I just put over Rand, and then was told to Rand as the new thing. And my thing was, am I wrong to think that? And that person said that's exactly what happened. And I wanted to ask this person. I asked several other people too as well, including y'all, because when you read how it all was put together, I even went back, was like, okay, when did they hire Ran Carthon? And then when did they hire Brinker? It doesn't say on their website when they actually hired Brinker, but it does say when they actually hired Ran Carthon. So Brinker was hired after Rand, and it was presented to us as Rand's hire, like bringing in as his assistant. Vrabel said he needs an assistant. Bring him as an assistant GM, Brinker, and then off we go. But Rand was the GM. Supposedly, that's how it was presented to us. But as I started to read the press release and everything else, I'm like, no, that doesn't sound right. That sound like y'all went and did something and then informed Rand, this is what. Listen to Brinker when he talks. See, I like listening to people. I think that's one of my best skills. But sometimes, you know, my kids may say, Dad, you're not listening to us. But it's like, I'm listening to y'all. I may not just want to do it, but I hear y'all. I hear everything y'all say. But listen to Brinker. Listen to his wording. And you start to get the thought of, man, what? He said yesterday that Amy came to him about the whole change, and they talked, and then Rand was on board with it. It's not like, oh, Amy came to Rand and we all talked about it, and we decided this is how the structure was going to be. Listen to people's wording, because when you're in situations like that and you say something, the first thing you say, they're leading you down a path. Maybe you pick up on it, maybe you don't, because they don't want to flat out lie and say, this is what we did. They're going to give you little nuggets if you just pay attention, because to me, someone talks long enough, you know where they're headed. Listen to what he said. He said, Amy came to me, Rand, and then made it seem like, oh, and Rand was on board. No, she came to you, and her and Nihil came to you. This is the new structure. Now they went and told Rand. And Rand was like, listen, what am I to say? Y'all done already came up with the structure. What am I going to say? No? And then I'm out the door? So y'all are changing my responsibility. So what am I to do now? So this was my responsibility the first year, but now this is my responsibility, and it no longer involves really me having to say over the roster, because essentially Brinker has to say over the roster. Again, one of the texters said it perfectly. She's peeing down our legs and telling us it's raining. Bert Nihil and those guys, well, Brinker is telling us this is the way it was, but is that really the way it was? Because what if I'm listening to you very closely, that's not the way it was. It seemed like and listen, if y'all choose to do that, okay. But don't make it seem like all of y'all were on the same page like y'all did with Vrabel and them. And then y'all end up firing people in stages, and then it comes out, well, it really wasn't as close as what it made to seem. And y'all are going through the same thing again. Y'all made it seem like it was one way. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's walking in the same direction. And what did Rand say? I think his quote last year, just because we all hunting don't mean we're hunting together. And he said, we're hunting together. Like all of us are hunting together. So when did it become apparent that y'all were not hunting together, Amy?
I think that's the question. It is right now, they are clear. Everybody sort of turned on Rand, and he's the easy fall guy. And what hopefully Rand has learned from this, if he could ever work his way and earn another opportunity down the road, he's still pretty young, right? He did not get out there and tell his story and create the narrative and be strong and gain some street cred, gain some connection with the fans. So he ends up being a very easy fall guy because of it. I don't know what went on behind the scenes. Now, it's possible that the narrative that was out there last year from Vrabel's camp that Ran wasn't his guy, and he wasn't ready for the job. That was written, right? That was put out there. Maybe that was true. Maybe that's the conclusion that Amy came to is I like the structure, but I need a more experienced GM, or Chad Brinker is a better GM. One of these is out there. But as you said, Derek, it has everybody scratching their head. What happened in a year?
But is that
Right?
Amy
Because it's
thinking
easy
it
from afar to say, hey, the quarterback was
Brinker?
awful, or else they would have been about the same as what we thought.
Let's continue this conversation on the other side. 615-737-1025. We'll also continue to take your calls and texts about the news of the day. The Tennessee Titans have fired General Manager Ran Carthon. We'll do more of that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game. D Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen here with you. Willie is in Winnipeg, where the Predators will wrap up their road trip tonight against the Jets. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, right here on 1025, 1063 The Game. It will be great to have Willie back in studio tomorrow. We haven't seen him in roughly a month. It'll be nice to have Willie back.
Hadn't seen him in a
This
year.
has been an odyssey. Starting and ending in Winnipeg, I have to tell you, that is a very interesting odyssey that we've been on. And on a side note, the team has played pretty well on this road trip. They've won the last two. The first two, they played very good games, came up just short, some bad penalties at the wrong time. They have a chance to have a winning record on this road trip if they can pull the upset tonight. If they come home with that, they'll feel pretty good.
Predators,
about where things are going, at least in the short term here.
Yes, Predators and Jets later tonight. The news of the day, the Tennessee Titans have fired general manager Ran Carthon. The statement from Amy Adams Strunk, controlling owner: I have loved my time I've spent with Ran. He is a talented football mind, a great man, and friend to everyone along his path. It's impossible to ignore that our football team hasn't improved over the past 2 years. I am deeply disappointed in our poor win-loss record during this period, of course, but my decision also speaks to my concern about our long-term future. Should we stay the course? I love this team more than you can imagine. To our fans, we know this level of performance isn't acceptable. We're humbled by your support as we continue to work towards building this team, building the team you expect and deserve, end quote. And during the break, I saw this story from Paul Kaharski at paulkaharski.com. Paul Kaharski, of course, will join Robbie and Rexroad during tomorrow's program. The headline: Some Hard Truths About Ran Carthon as Titans Say Goodbye. And this was the section that I want to get into because, Willie, before you joined the program today, we were reading some of the quotes in the story from Jim Wyatt, from Chad Brinker and Burke Nihel. And the way that I read some of those quotes from Brinker, and I texted this to both of you before the show, there were some subtle digs at Ran Carthon in those quotes. And this is what Paul Kaharski writes at paulkaharski.com. Quote, his critics, meaning Carthon's critics, did not view him as a grinder. I've been told all the important parties were on board with the Titans making a move and drafting Will Levis with the 33rd pick of the 2023 draft. But while Mike Vrabel and Carthon were at Levis's pro day while Mike Vrabel and Carthon were at Levis's pro day in Lexington, Kentucky, Carthon left early. Some personnel people and scouts say early departures are not uncommon, but that left a mark on many inside the Titans organization. So too did Carthon's post-game routine after road games. Personnel people and scouts typically eat and then dive into the film of the game the team just played to get ahead on the Monday review. But Carthon often did what I do on my plane rides home after games. He napped. I don't want to overread into Brinker's statement about what he's looking for in the next GM, but he said the new person will be, quote, all ball, all day, end quote. That's football-centric, not relationship-centric. And this is what we're going to see right now. I like to call it the now they tell us story. This is what happens in not just sports journalism, but in political journalism, whatever realm you read the news. It's the now they tell us story. These are things that nobody in the Titans organization was willing to say when Ran Carthon was employed by the Tennessee Titans. But now that he's been fired, those same people are going to be saying all of these things. So there might be some damage control being done in this. They control the narrative in this situation because Ran Carthon, as we came to know him, doesn't really talk much. So he's probably not going to get his side of the story out there. But we're going to be seeing a lot of these things, Willie. These stories that paint Ran Carthon in a negative light. I'm not picking on Paul Kaharski here. He's doing the reporting that he needs to be doing. But we're going to be seeing a lot of these types of stories in the next days and weeks.
Yeah, not a grinder is something that has been out there. And I was always one, and I do want to clarify that while we talk Titans on this show every day, and I give you my full opinion on what I see, my perspective is different than somebody that is in the building, covering practice, covering all of the events for the Titans every day. I'm not a beat guy, right? I'm on a different beat, right? But I pay as much attention as I can. I read up. I watch the games. I give you my observations from there. So that's important to note. I always wanted to give Ran Carthon the benefit of the doubt for that, because I think it's easy when a guy is on the way out like Vrabel to stick a guy with a tag. Hey, I didn't have my guy in there that I wanted to be the next GM. They went with Ran Carthon, and Ran Carthon doesn't work very hard, right? I think it's easy on the way out to say that, and you kind of jump on the guy that is still behind you. He didn't do it publicly, but you could tell that there was that narrative's out there. But I do have to say, I wonder, right, if that tag was a factor, right, with what Paul chronicled there, because I did hear that some, but I was one that wanted to give Ran the benefit of the doubt and say, look, if you take a look, they had a tough situation that they were coming into.
And Derek, I believe, I'm sorry to interrupt. I believe that Jared at one point said that in talking to people that he knew within the Titans organization, they said something to the effect of he likes to play general manager more than actually doing the things that being a general manager entails. And it feels like that, and what I just read from Paul Kaharski and what Willie just said, those all seem to be semi-related. That there was a perception that Ran Carthon was unwilling or just chose not to do the things that a general manager typically does.
Yeah, and that was Jared said that to me, and my thing was, listen, is he like that all the time, or is he coming in, every so often, at this time and then whatnot? Or is this an everyday occurrence, or is it sometimes that happens every so often where you come in a little late or whatnot, or whatnot? And that's how I explained it to Jared, and Jared can tell you that because he told me, and I said, maybe you just walked in at a time where Ran wasn't there and he was doing some other things. So to me, it's like, okay, I get it, but that's just one example. Here's what happened, because it happened to Mike Vrabel, and this is why I said it's a circus over there, and you don't know who's telling the truth. Basically, that's what it is. Because this happened with Mike Vrabel. Everything was all peachy and creamy, and then stuff started to trickle out. And my thing was, see, when things are going well, everything stays in house. But then when things aren't going the way you want them to go, those things that didn't irritate you, now they're starting to irritate you. Those things that you really didn't care about was like, oh, that's just Vrabel. Now they're starting to irritate you. Not because, you don't like, it's because you're losing now. And eventually they're going to start pointing fingers. So stuff will start leaking out sooner than rather than later. And then sometimes all of it sort of leaks out once the guy's gone. Things started to leak out about, what players, about Vrabel and all this other stuff. It's just odd that you mentioned, again, because I think it's coming from Brinker. I'm going to say that because not many people are on that plane. I know this for sure. I know it for sure. Not many people are on that plane that sit in the front. I'm going to tell you who's up there. Typically, it's the coaches, but not in the front. Like, they're behind the GM and the head coach. It's usually the GM, head coach, assistant GM. They're all like in Baltimore, a few players got to sit in first class. The more veteran players got to sit in first class up there with the GM or whatnot. So there's not many people in that front seat. So when you see, that's why I like listening. See, when you say, he falls to sleep on the plane ride home, who knows that he falls asleep? It's only a few people, because there's only a few people. The pilot ain't saying nothing. The stewardess, they're not saying anything. So who is it? It's either two people, the head coach or the assistant, used to be the assistant GM, now the guy that's over you. So you fall asleep, maybe, let's just say you fall asleep once on a long plane ride, or maybe twice. You figure I can watch the film at home or whatnot. You fall asleep. Everybody else may be, grinding out, but you fall asleep. I need a little rest. So is that every time, or did you fall asleep 1 or 2 times? Now they're pointing at it like, heads are about to roll. I'm about to get one up on somebody. and inform the owner this is what's happening, or I believe this is what's happening. So was that an everyday thing? Because not too long ago, you said everybody was on the same page. Everybody was doing the things that needed to be done within the organization to move the organization forward. Am I lying about this, Willie?
No.
This is why I say it's a circus. Like now it's coming out. And I'm not saying there's no truth into what they're saying about Ran Carthon. That's not what I'm saying. It's just how funny how y'all strategically, put together this narrative and this message as he's walking out the door. Ran can't say anything right now. He can't.
Exactly. I think these are great points, Derek, and I think I come back to something else as well. If Will
they
Levis
did the same thing with John Robinson.
If Will Levis had played average football, I don't think any of this comes to light.
No.
Right? There's one thing right there. What the quarterback being better than they thought he was going to be. Not only was he not better than they thought he was going to be, he was way worse than they thought he was going to be. I don't know if you hear all these details. So I'm trying to be fair, but I have to admit there are work situations where everybody is on the same page, but you still see somebody who is kind of a weak link, right? And you want to improve the weak link when things are not successful. And so maybe this is the right move. I'm not saying that it's not, but all of the questions that I think you're asking, Derek, I think are fair, just like my questions. What went so wrong from last year to this year with the structure? Or I guess they feel like the structure is okay. Brinker has done what they think he should do, but everybody has turned on Ran, and Ran had other people telling his story from the start. He never really got out there and told his story and said, here's what I'm doing every day. This is what I'm doing. He let other people tell, and these details come out there. He never really addressed them or anything. He let everybody else sort of label him.
And I'm gonna say this, because I'm going to push my own narrative. I'm not going to let someone else try to push a narrative for me. I'm not making an excuse for Ran Carthon. Again, I'm going to say this. I'm not making an excuse for Ran Carthon. I am not making an excuse for Ran Carthon. I'm going to say it again. I am not making an excuse for Ran Carthon. He got fired. It is what it is. You weren't winning enough? You got fired. Plain and simple. Black and white. Okay? But what I am saying is this. It's mighty funny, even with Robinson. It was mighty funny now that things are not going well. Now he's the guy that you didn't like this and you didn't like that. But no more than 6 or 7 months ago, it seemed like everybody was on the same page. Probably a little earlier than that. It seemed like everybody was on the same page, but now all of a sudden, now these things come out. Again, they may be true. I don't know. And I'm not trying to make an excuse for them. But it's funny. They did the same thing to John Robinson. Things started to leak out once he got fired. They did a little bit of it to Mike Vrabel. They're doing the same exact thing to Ran Carthon. So this is not just exclusive to Ran Carthon.
Doug is in Franklin on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Doug, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
I would nominate Derek to be the general manager, except I think the job he has now is much easier and much better.
Oh, definitely. Don't pay as much, but
there won't be
any stress.
There won't be any front stabbing or back stabbing if Derek stays on this program.
So if I understand that the hierarchy, Chad Brinker being elevated, if all these things were not right with Ran, true or false, he's his boss. It's got to fall on him too. What kind of a leader is he if he can't help elevate his staff and get it better? So he's got to be partially responsible. But the main reason I called was Derek's comment. Coach Callahan yesterday, basically when he was challenged on decisions being made for personnel and everything else, they said all three of us worked together. All three of us had the same decisions. All three of us agreed. Well, if three agreed and one gets fired, I find that unusual. So there's obviously a lot more going on. Then the last little comment, which is hopefully a little funny, Monty Austinfort, who didn't get the Titan job but did get the Arizona job, he's got to be so happy right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks for the call, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. I'm sure he is.
A lot of instability going on over there. I mean, the next Titans general manager will be the third different general manager to start a season over the past 4 years. And the reasons for the changes, they vary, but it paints the picture, Willie, of an incredibly dysfunctional organization.
I think until they win, there's going to be a lot of doubt on everything that they do, right? I think that's just sort of the nature of the beast. When you struggle and you make a big decision, everybody's going to kind of raise their eyebrows and go, is that the right decision? Whereas if you're winning and you do something fairly unorthodox and you make a big decision, people are like, well, I can't really doubt it. They've been pretty successful. So I think they're fighting that. And now we'll see where they go with if Chad Brinker hires somebody. Like I think that's the question. Here I'm sitting in Winnipeg. We were at the morning skate, hashing this out, just asking questions while we were waiting for the team to get on the ice. And I think that was a consensus question everybody had. Is the new guy that they're bringing in going to be under Chad Brinker? And is Chad Brinker basically running the show now? Because it's like, Adam, if I hire you, if I'm Chad Brinker and I hire you, are you my boss? I don't think that if he's running the search,
it's been spelled out
whether they actually
it's been spelled out that he is going to have tie-breaking power when it comes to personnel matters.
So basically, he is your boss.
Yes.
But that doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well, what makes a lot of sense over there lately?
What the Titans have been doing the last couple of years.
If I hire you, I'm the guy that brings you in. This is what
it doesn't make sense, Willie.
Brinker and Ran. Ran basically brought Brinker with him. Like Mike Vrabel wasn't bringing in Brinker. Ran brought in Brinker. But then now Brinker's running the show and Ran is out. That's one I'd love to know how that evolved from day one until now. But if I'm hiring you, Derek, Derek, you're the GM. But you're saying, okay, that's great, Willie, but you brought me in. I mean, how is this going to work? Oh, no, Derek, I hired you, but you're over me. Don't like that. That's weird. That doesn't.
CYB
it's the other way around, right?
CYB
you're working under me. I want to bring you in on my team. I'm the president. You're the GM. Let's work together. But at some point, you got to have a hierarchy, right?
Really, it's CYB. Cover your own butt. Cover your butt. Cover your own butt, man. That's what it is. CYB, cover your own butt, man. And that's the way it seems to be. And listen, it is what it is, man.
As one texter says, sorry, Derek. As one texter says, this texter's advice to prospective GM candidates: rent, don't buy.
Yeah, you might as well rent a house, don't buy it, and be willing to, know you have at least 2 years of free money. Because she's not going to give you an opportunity to build up this roster. At least that's the way it's gone the last couple of years. I just look at this again. I just hope she makes the right, whatever guy they bring in as GM. I hope it's the right guy for the right reasons. That's what I hope. You went and got a GM 2 years ago, and the next following year, you sort of changed his, his title or added some things to his title. But then you took the guy that he hired and you elevated him above him. Rand should have saw something coming when that happened, because you quickly fell out of favor, whether you know it or not. And it just reeks of just sliminess to me.
615, sorry, Derek. 615-737-1025. We all have thoughts. We're just tripping over each other to say what we want to say. But we also want to hear from you at 615-737-1025. Let's see here. Tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight for Vanderbilt men's basketball. The Commodores will take on Mississippi State at Memorial Gym with an 8 o'clock tip-off and the pregame show starting at 7:30. Coverage is also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at theGameNashville.com. Vanderbilt men's basketball presented by Athletes Unlimited Pro Basketball, coming to Nashville's Municipal Auditorium February 5th through March 2nd. Go to auprobasketball.com for more details and to purchase tickets.
All right, let's talk Lee Company. Proud sponsor, Nashville Predators. We're here in 1 degree Winnipeg. Is it 1 or is it -1? Is there a difference? Not much. But The Jets are a heck of a hockey team. This is the second trip against the Jets on this road trip, which has been a long one. We'll have all the coverage for you starting at 6 o'clock tonight when the Predators take on the Jets. Lee Company, hey, it's cold back home as well. Maybe not -1, but it's cold. And is your heater running properly? If it's not running efficiently, make sure that you call 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com is the website. Make an online appointment. Have those guys come out there and check it for you. They will do a great job. They have in our house for a long, long time. And ask about the home maintenance plan for year-round coverage as well when it comes to not only heating, but air conditioning, plumbing, and electric. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. It's Lee Company, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 1025, 1063 the game. Britney Spears, right? Britney Spears? Okay.
Of course.
Yeah, is it?
It's a circus.
It is a circus. And as most of you know, as Chase definitely knows, I'm a big fan of The Simpsons. And The Simpsons has been on long enough that there are references for everything you can possibly find in life on The Simpsons. You have to go back all the way to the first season. It was an episode where Homer was going to a coworker's bachelor party. And he's in the bathroom talking to Marge about going to this party. And he mentions the name of the employee, of the coworker. And she goes, "Wait a minute, isn't that guy your assistant?" And he goes, "No, my supervisor." And she said, "Didn't he used to be your assistant?" That's what I think about in this situation with Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker, because he was hired to be the assistant general manager. Chad Brinker was. And now he's running the show, and Ran Carthon isn't there anymore. There's going to be a lot of ways that we're going to get into this. Matt in Columbia on our text line says, "I'm sorry, but it all starts at the top. I am a Michigander, and this looks way too much like the Detroit football team used to be. I'm sorry, Titans fans, but it could be decades before you see any type of championship. Amy Adams needs to use the Detroit owners playbook." That's Matt from Columbia.
Well, there are a few individuals over there that they can hire, and it seems like those guys are on the list of potential free GMs that the Titans could hire. I think they named 2 guys from the Detroit Lions executive staff that could be potential candidates for the GM job. So, hey, listen, if they want to know what was going on in Detroit the last couple of years, then you hire one of those guys. But again, to me, it's hopefully whatever decision you make, I hope it's the right one, because over the last so many years, it seemed like every move that has been made is been made. It seems to be not well thought out, not thoroughly thought out. Let's say that. And it seems like you're bringing in people that either eventually going to clash because of power, or want to sort of weasel their way to a position, within this building. So this organization doesn't seem to be flowing right. And from what's come out, how things have been done, it just seems like, to me, there has been a bunch of backstabbing and jockeying for position. Because again, the caller was right. If everyone was supposedly on the same page, and it's not working, then everybody needs to get fired. Because what happens if you don't have another good season next year? Who are you going to fire then? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Brian Callahan, don't unpack your boxes. Don't, find land, rent a house. Maybe keep your kids at the same school they were in Cincinnati. Maybe that's your home base. But the way things have been going, you're more likely to be fired than not.
Willie, your thoughts?
Well, I don't think I have anything new to add that what we're throwing in there, but I agree with Derek that there's only so many times you can just keep saying, well, if we don't do well, we're going to fire this guy or that guy. I do think at some point you've got to settle in and realize, and Brian Callahan was asked a lot of questions along these lines. I think it was Terry McCormick that asked him, can you fix all the holes in 1 year? Like from now until next year, right? It's one thing to ask that last year, but asking him going forward, and he said, I think so, but I don't know if that's what he wanted to say. I think you have to be realistic. Like the real question is, what kind of quarterback play do they get next year? But in the meantime, they've got a lot of other holes: right tackle, dynamic wide receiver, edge rusher, like things that are not easy to find and fix in 1 year. That's all separate from getting the most obvious problem, and that's solid quarterback play. Forget about spectacular quarterback play. That's a lot to fix in 1 year. So what's realistic for next year? I think part of what happened that where Ran Carthon takes the fall is I think they did not set everybody up for the fact that this kind of season was possible. With all of the moves that they made. I think they sort of thought they could do better and decided to roll the dice and say, we're going to be good. Watch, we got rid of Mike Vrabel, but we're going to be better. When that was probably not the best approach.
Trey is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey, thank you for waiting. Thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, how y'all doing today, guys?
Good, thanks.
Doing good.
Hey, I just wanted to say, just from my opinion, is that if my job performance on paper didn't line up with what I was doing on the field, I would expect to get fired. If I came to Adam, if Adam is my broker and he say, Trevelyan, I need you to drive these O-rings to California for this $5 million computer, and I do it and I don't do it, then I expect to get fired.
But there are circumstances though. Let's. The question was asked yesterday.
Thank you, Trey.
Paul tried to grill Callahan on, hey, other first-year coaches average X amount of wins. I think the number is something like 8. And Callahan had a good answer. He goes, first of all, I can't tell you what's happening in all these other teams, but every team is different. For example, let's say I'm George Seifert. I take over for Bill Walsh, 1988. I inherit a Super Bowl winner. I've got Joe Montana as my quarterback. I got Roger Craig. I got Jerry Rice. I got one of the best teams of the decade. And I win the Super Bowl my first year. I am a, quote, first-year head coach. But was I put in a position to win? Heck yeah. That's a little different than taking over as Brian Callahan, where they move on from Derrick Henry. You're moving on from Ryan Tannehill, who's aging out. Kevin Byard's aging out. You had a huge chunk of salary cap that's moved on. You don't have a lot of young talent. You see what I'm saying? That is going to affect what your record is as a first-year head coach. Not all first-year head coaches have it the same.
So I have the tweet from Paul Kaharski that he referenced in the question that you're referencing, Willie. 2024 NFL new head coaches. Now, keep in mind, this is not first-year head coaches like Brian Callahan, a rookie head coach.
Yes.
First-year head coaches in their current situations. Dan Quinn in Washington, 12-5, made the playoffs. Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers, 11-6, made the playoffs. Mike McDonald, Seattle, 10-7. Raheem Morris, Atlanta, 8-9. Antonio Pierce, Las Vegas, 4-13. Gerard Mayo, New England, 4-13, fired. Brian Callahan, Tennessee, 3-14. Average wins 7.4.
Yeah, if you look at all of those.
Who is the quarterback on each one of those
that's what I was about to say.
Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert, Geno Smith, Michael Penix / Kirk Cousins, Aiden O'Connell / Gardner Minshew, Drake May, Will Levis / Mason Rudolph.
I think the only one that didn't is the Oakland, and you see how they ended up. I think New England, they started off with one guy, they threw in the rookie guy, he took his rookie lumps, but that team is bad too. As a whole, that team is bad. And Gerard Mayo, was put in a bad position. They fired him. It is what it is. Do I think it's football and sports are not fair? It's just things happen. But in those other situations, you have first time, like you said, Adam, you have first time head coaches, but not first time head coaches. That's their first time that they've had that particular job, but it hasn't been the first time that they've had a job. Dan Quinn has been a long time head coach in this, and he inherits a team, and they go and find their quarterback. They hit on their quarterback. They got a stud receiver, got a running back. Okay, off we go. The quarterback is sensational. We know what the LA Chargers are. I don't even have to go down a litany of players they have. We know who they are. Who was another first-time coach? Seattle. They got players on their team. And Geno Smith is a good quarterback. I would love to have Geno Smith right about now. So he is a good established quarterback. He is a playoff winning quarterback.
And they're about the same as they were before.
Exactly. And they were the same as they were last year. Yeah. So those three situations are different from what the Titans went through. And I understand that, hey, listen, they were dealing with a first-time quarterback, and their rookie quarterback hit. I know that their roster probably wasn't the greatest, but like Brian Callahan said, listen, I can only tell you about my team. I can't tell you everything they had or didn't have on their team. I can tell you one thing they had that we didn't have, and everybody knows it: quarterback play. It was much better. Our quarterback play was horrible. So that was one of the components that led the Tennessee Titans to have the season that they had. That wasn't the only, but it was one of the major ones. And who helped make that decision? Ran Carthon. You're part of it. Again, not making no excuses. You're part of it. So eventually, they're going to fire if things are not going well. Things were not going well. They made you as one of the scapegoats. To me, I said they should have fired everybody. Because to me, if you end up in the same situation next year, then I'm going off. I'm really going. I like not holding it back, because my thing is,
now I'm kind of hoping for that so I can hear what this is.
But my thing is, like, if you're going to do it, I'm not saying don't fire anyone. I'm not advocating for it either. But if you're going to do it, listen, do it across the board, because y'all made it seem like everybody was on board the last year and a half, almost two. But now that things have gotten bad, it seemed like, oh, everybody's on the board except that guy. He's the only person that's not on board. Amy, fire them all. Show some strength and fire them all. Don't keep doing this in stages.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. The Tennessee Titans have fired general manager Ran Carthon. We will continue to react and wrap up the show next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
Hey, this is D Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a goal or a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. At Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063, the game. Stillman and Company at 2 o'clock. Do not change your radio dial. We all are waiting anxiously to hear what Jared has to say about what has gone down at St. Thomas Sports Park today. The Tennessee Titans firing general manager Ran Carthon after 2 seasons. Jack is in East Nashville on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jack, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
You know, if firing and changing people constantly would have worked, it would have worked by now. And the crazy thing about this is after it's all said and done, all she's really done is put herself further behind because there's no stability. Nobody knows who to answer to. And I would be very surprised if there's any even super experienced GM that would take the job, hit a magic combination of draft and free agents in the next couple of months, and turn this into a 12-5 team. It ain't going to happen. So all she's really done is shot herself in the seat of the pants one more time.
Thanks, Jack. Thank you for the call. Willie, one thing I said to Derek, and we're going to be talking about this for the next few days and weeks, based on the structure that apparently the Titans are going to have, where Chad Brinker holds the tie-breaking vote on personnel matters between Brian Callahan and whoever the new general manager is going to be. I can't imagine a situation where a seasoned general manager agrees to take that job. I mean, I would assume that I predicted that Chad Brinker is ultimately going to decide that he's going to be the general manager. But if he does hire someone for that position, it's going to be more than likely a first-time general manager, just like Ran Carthon was.
I'm really curious to see how that plays out. Is that person coming in to be sort of an understudy working alongside Chad Brinker, whose title is GM, but Chad Brinker is really the guy running it? I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know there are several operations in Major League sports, not just the NFL, where the person who is really running the football operations does not have the GM title. There is somebody else on staff that is the GM. I think the Mets are one. I think the guy who is running the personnel decisions, his name is David Stearns. I don't think his title is GM. He's got some other title that is a little more fancy sounding. So it really doesn't matter what your title is. It's who's running the show, who is leading the group. So that's what I want to see. But let's also always keep this in mind. I don't care how great your structure is, how much continuity you have. When you go empty in 3 drafts, 2020 through 2022, and I mean not just empty, I'm talking empty. For example, Brian Callahan was talking about some of the young players. He was talking about Williams, one of the rookies who he thinks is a really good special teams player. That's not nothing, right, for a rookie. Caleb Farley, Isaiah Wilson, Traylon Burks, that's basically nothing. Not even a special teams contributor, not even a guy that is usable on a roster. So they had empty drafts. When you combine that with trading A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry getting to a point where they didn't want to pay him, he moves on, your quarterback aged out, your all-pro safety leader aged out, they were going to struggle unless they had a miraculous performance from a Will Levis. So the structure is one thing, and we should look at the structure because to get out of this hole, they're going to need to have that. But they were going to struggle regardless of who was running it, in my opinion, barring a unexpected lift, kind of like the Washington franchise got from Jaden Daniels. That elevated everybody.
Yeah, because that's the quarterback play, and if you can get decent to very good quarterback play, then again, I think. I'm not sure that, when you sort of look at this situation and look at this roster, and, whether you are, a starch supporter of Ran or against them, or, you're neither one or the other, you gotta sort of, okay, these are the things that he did well, and these are the things that he did. And obviously, when you're not winning, that's the one most important thing. You supposedly, as the GM, you don't have a winning season on your docket. Okay, that's the first indictment. That's like one of the real only indictments. Are you winning? Yes or no? That's first and foremost. But then in the midst of hopefully winning, are you developing players? Again, listen to Brinker at what he said. He said, not only do we want somebody that is great at acquiring those guys, but also developing them, into the system that we have, making the right choices based upon the system we're running, based upon the head coach and obviously Brinker. Okay, I'm gonna give you three. You had over the last 2 years, you had 2,000-yard receivers. Okay, D-Hop last year, Calvin Ridley this year. You had 1,000-yard back after having Derrick Henry, who rushed for I think 1,300 the previous year. Then you bring in Pollard. Pollard is the 1,000-yard back. Nick Westbrook-Ikine continues to develop. 9 touchdowns, I believe. You started to see Chigakonkwo develop more within their passing game. Tajay Spears, if you get able to stay on the field, but beside him staying on the field, you saw him develop a little bit more. Now, those are the things. Then you saw Brownlee. He was developing as a young guy. J.C. Latham took his ups and downs, but he's developing as well. So those are what I would consider his pluses, meaning Ran Carthon. That's on the side of Ran Carthon. There could be more things, but that's neither here nor there. Those are the things definitely that I can see, that I can say, okay, I can point to those things as guys that either, you get what you needed out of them that year. You hope for more, but you got some good stuff out of them, to guys that you saw develop. But on the back end of that, the quarterback didn't develop. The offensive line, the right side still was bad. Your team as a whole didn't get better. You got worse. And then now all of a sudden, this whole new structure, and in this whole new structure, you really ain't got no say. So evidently, if you are going to succeed, it was an uphill battle because the roster was bad. And it seems like you were put in a position to basically be the fall guy, but you didn't help yourself. Again, people, I'm not making an excuse for him. I'm not. I'm just laying out facts the way I see it. But he didn't help himself. He didn't speak to anybody, meaning media. I'm not talking about, he was a great guy when he came to talking to people.
He did not control his narrative.
Exactly.
He did not control his narrative.
He let everybody else control it for him.
And now we're seeing it play out, Willie, the other way with the article I referenced from Paul Kaharski. I'm sure we're going to see more of those types of articles from other reporters. Everyone is talking for Ran Carthon. We've mentioned this many times, that he made a mistake by not being more available, not just because it was important for him to tell Titans fans what he was doing, but because he did not give himself an opportunity to set the agenda and control his own narrative. And now we continue to write this storyline for him. Mm-hmm. And that is something that if he reemerges somewhere, that is something that he should probably work to correct.
I totally agree with that, because I think even from Amy Adams Struck's perspective, I don't know that she listens to the sports talk narratives. I'm sure she reads some things, but some of how she perceives her employees is probably what is being written, what is being said about it. What is the perception of Ran Carthon from the fans, from the media, etc.? And that is a great lesson to be learned, I think, is Ran Carthon made himself an easy target for criticism because he didn't really defend himself. He did nothing to, as you guys said, tell his own story, set his own narrative, which I think a good general manager does, and also connect with the fans. When the fans like you and are on your side, you are much better suited and equipped to buy yourself some time when things don't go well.
We use the Barry
And
Trotz
he did
example
none of
all
that.
the time in this. We use the Barry Trotz
Yes.
example all the time.
Do you think that, okay, in this whole Carthon situation, you know, what is he? It's essentially like, okay, if you saw these things, like you saw these things as they were going on, I'm wondering, and maybe they did, I don't know, if you felt this was a problem, because obviously it was, because now it's getting out, so it's sprinkling out. If you saw that this was a problem, like, oh well, he went to sleep on a plane when we were grinding, and again, there's only 3 people up at the front, and one of them is the assistant GM, the other's the GM, and then, or the president, the GM, and then the head coach. So if you saw this president, shouldn't you have addressed that, like when you saw it, like addressed it, like let's get in the office, so all 3 of us are going to be on this thing together. We're all headed down the server. Shouldn't you have addressed the sleeping, portion with the group? And maybe they did. And if he kept sleeping, then damn, his ass need to be fired. If he kept sleeping,
right? These are the anecdotal examples, right? That he came to work for if it was 2 years, it was close to 800 days, right? Being employed. Let's say of those 600 days you come to work, is the sleeping on the plane or not going to the Senior Bowl or whatever these examples that float out about he's not a grinder, is that indicative of what you saw every day in those 600 days? Or because I can nitpick, I can cherry pick 1 or 2 things to try to make almost anybody I know look bad for a day. But does that define who you are? I think that's the central question.
And we will continue this conversation tomorrow. We will be back on the air at 11 o'clock. All 3 of us will be here because Willie will finally return from his sojourn through Western Canada. Stillman & Company coming up next, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
And quickly, what I'm getting is that there was a request for Ran Carthon and Brinker. Ran said yes. Brinker and the staff over at the Titans said no. So take that for what it's worth. Ran wanted to talk. Brinker didn't. They wanted both of them. Brinker didn't. Take it for what it's worth. Be love on your people. Have fun. Be safe this Tuesday. Peace.